excellent teacher. She teaches in Gooding and she teaches Title I now, and she is a great resource for all of us. So you are going to learn loads. I would invite you to make sure that you have your interactive notebook and your slides. Like Anne is showing us there, she keeps paper copies so we know what we are. So anyway, with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Anne.
Okay, thank you, Peggy, for those nice words. And thank you, everybody, for joining us after lunch. I hope that today's session on oral reading fluency for the emergent reader answers any questions you might have about the role of oral reading fluency in learning to read, as well as deepen some of your understandings about fluency instructions. And I'm also kind of eager for this opportunity for us to share ideas that we can easily implement in your classroom. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get stuck doing the same things over and over, and I get bored with them, and the kids get bored with them. So hopefully you'll leave here today with some new ideas. A little bit about me. As Peggy said, I'm a Title I reading intervention teacher at Gooding Elementary School. I've been a teacher for 21 years. I spent 10 of those years as a second and third grade teacher, and the last 11 have been as a Title I teacher. Soon after I started teaching, it didn't take me long to realize that I needed more background about reading instruction, particularly in the case of emergent readers. I can remember many years ago, my go-getter principal showing me my classroom after I was hired, and I could just feel my heart race as I realized I had so much to learn about reading and teaching in general. Fortunately, at that time, I had to take the comprehensive literacy course, and my smart principal put me with a team of very proficient teachers. And during the course of this steep learning curve, I became very adept at looking for patterns and sponging information off of colleagues. After a year or two of feeling like I was operating by the seat of my pants, I went back to school and learned even more about reading. My journey as a reading teacher has been a rewarding yet persistently humbling one. I don't know if any of you feel that way about your days at school. I find I'm a constant work in progress, and I strive to pivot with the times and constantly improve my practice. I know this is probably true for many of you, and I hope your participation today will be helpful. Again, thanks for joining me. Our essential questions today are going to be, what is oral reading fluency, and how can we best implement oral reading fluency practice in our classroom practices? When you leave here today, my hope is that you understand the following. The three primary components of oral reading fluency are expression, prosody, accuracy, and pace. Repeated oral reading can lead to improvements in reading speed, accuracy, comprehension, and expression. And let me adjust this a little bit. There are 4 progressive levels of fluency processing: letter, word, phrase, and text. Fluency at each of these levels is needed to ensure that reading is processing effectively. And we're going to delve into all of those levels in a little more detail. To give you a brief overview of our session, we'll be discussing the research and background for teaching oral reading fluency and sharing how fluency factors into 2 commonly used representations of reading. In addition, we will be defining oral reading fluency and how repeated oral reading can improve fluency at all 4 processing levels of reading. The note catcher that I shared with you earlier is organized around these 5 points. So section 1 is all about a little bit of background. Research tells us that more fluent readers focus on comprehension tasks, and less fluent readers focus primarily on decoding rather than comprehending. So if disfluent readers use a significant amount of their limited working memory trying to decode words, they don't have enough working memory left to attend to comprehension tests. I think that all readers, when presented with challenging texts, have experienced this reading void. I've experienced it in college, and I've experienced it as a teacher adult. The following video shows us how proficient fluency helps readers pivot from foundational skills reading, what I call labored word by word reading, to reading for comprehension. And on this video, I'm going to go ahead and play it, but on some devices, we've had a hard time hearing the volume. So if that's the case for you, you might want to go out to the link.
What do we mean when we talk about fluency? Fluency with text is reading words with no noticeable cognitive or mental effort. It's when the fundamental skills are so automatic that it doesn't require conscious attention. So, what does that mean exactly? Let's give some examples. People can perform many tasks with automaticity or automatically, like walking, riding a bike, or driving a car. Fluency, like riding a bike, develops through practice. Students go from sounding out individual letters and letter combinations to reading words quickly and effortlessly, with lots of opportunities for practice until reading the words can be performed with a high rate of success. Fluency in oral reading has three parts: accuracy, which is reading with few errors; reading speed, or the rate at which a student reads; and prosody, or the skill of reading aloud with proper intonation, phrasing, and expression. To be a fluent reader, all three of these components must be in place. So, what do fluent readers look like? Fluency research says that successful readers rely primarily on the letters in the words rather than context or pictures to identify familiar and unfamiliar words. They process virtually every letter. They use letter-sound correspondences to identify words. They have a reliable strategy for decoding words. And they read words a sufficient number of times for words to become automatic. Why should we focus on fluency? To gain meaning from text, students must read fluently. Proficient readers are so automatic with each component skill, phonological awareness, decoding, vocabulary, that they focus their attention on constructing meaning in print. These component skills need to be well developed to support understanding. It's not enough to be simply accurate. The skill must be automatic. So fluency is not an end in itself, but is the bridge to comprehension. Fluent reading frees up cognitive resources to better process the meaning of the words. Now that we know why it's necessary, how do we help build fluency? Effective fluency instruction should include repeated readings or practice with passages that the student can read with a high level of accuracy. It should be brief, about 15 to 30 minutes. It should include corrective feedback. Students should be able to set goals and graph progress. And teachers should keep in mind that fluency is only part of the bigger picture. Thanks for watching the Big 5 and Under 5, Fluency with Text. If you're interested in learning more, check out the National Center on Improving Literacy's Fluency Toolkit and watch for the rest of the Big 5 and Under 5 series.
So you see that fluency is that all-important bridge to comprehension. It's important that we attend to oral reading fluency, not only because it's a necessary skill to have so that the ultimate goal of reading, comprehension, can occur, but also because it's a standard for kindergarten through fifth grades. Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next section? All right. So far, we've discussed why fluency is so important. It allows readers to focus on comprehension. Before we delve further into the specifics of teaching oral reading fluency, I thought it would be helpful to see a couple models depicting the components that are necessary for proficient reading to take place. You will notice they are basically different ways of depicting the same process. Both models are aligned with the science of reading that you've probably already heard about somewhat today. Note the roles played by fluency in each model. Remember from the first video that fluency is the bridge between decoding and comprehension. The first model is known as the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is a basic way of showing how the main components of proficient reading, decoding, and language comprehension are factors in a multiplication model. Decoding and language comprehension are necessary for reading comprehension to take place. The following video explains these factors better than I could and how they're involved in this equation and how there must be proficiency in both for reading comprehension to take place.
When we think about the essential skills children need to build their reading
Can you
brain,
hear okay?
Goff and Tunmer's model, known as the simple view of reading, is quite helpful. In this model, the critical sub-skills of reading are simplified to their essential categories, decoding and language comprehension, and framed as a multiplication equation, with reading comprehension as the product or goal on the right side of the equation. The idea is this. Strong reading comprehension results only when both decoding and language comprehension are strong. To illustrate this idea, let's assign values of 0 for weak and 1 for strong. If decoding is weak and assigned a value of 0, and language comprehension is strong, a value of 1, reading comprehension is weak because 0 multiplied by 1 is 0. Conversely, if language comprehension is weak but decoding is strong, reading comprehension still suffers. 1 times 0 is 0. Only when both domains on the left side of the equation are strong does reading comprehension become a strong 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. This simple view of reading tells us that children need to learn essential skills to decode to get text off the page, while also developing their understanding of the world and of literacy. Although reading is a complex process, this simple view is helpful because all of the essential sub-skills of reading, such as phonological awareness and vocabulary, can be assigned to the decoding and language comprehension domains on the left side of the equation.
I really like that video because it does an effective job of showing the all or nothing aspect of this equation. Readers have to be proficient in both domains for comprehension to take place. Another model we're going to visit today is Hollis-Scarborough's rope of reading. Maybe. There we go. Skilled reading, as we all know, is a complex process with many working parts. In 2001, Hollis-Scarborough created a model known as the rope model that shows the two major components of reading, which are pretty much aligned with the simple view of reading, except in this case, they're called language comprehension and word recognition instead of decoding. These two components must work together in tandem and in an intertwined, some would say synergistic way to result in proficient reading. Fluency helps a skill union occur by making word recognition increasingly automatic and language comprehension more strategic, thus enabling comprehension to take place. Fluency is an important catalyst for making this necessary union, where I view the combined effect as being greater than the sum of the separate skills. I say this because the processes involved for proficient reading are so numerous and varied that a significant amount of mental and visual coordination must occur in tandem. When this coordination does not take place, the rope is not strong and reading problems result. And we're going to watch another brief video that shares this in a little more detail. You can see on this chart that right here, fluency is kind of like the glue that holds the rope together and makes it strong. Skilled reading, fluent execution, and coordination of word recognition and text comprehension.
Another helpful theoretical model for the reading process is Scarborough's reading rope, which expands upon the simple view of reading. Scarborough's reading rope provides a meaningful visual representation of the process by which decoding, or word recognition, and language comprehension subskills are combined during skillful reading. The decoding subskills are each assigned a strand in the rope: phonological awareness, decoding and spelling, and sight recognition. Under language comprehension, we need to build these reading subskills: background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. Think of these subskills as strands in the reading rope that become stronger and stronger the more tightly the strands are woven together. As the language comprehension subskills grow and get stronger, the reader becomes increasingly strategic in their reading. At the same time, as the reader strengthens their decoding subskills, they're becoming more automatic in their reading. With increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic reading, skilled reading occurs and the reader can comprehend text. Skilled reading appears to be effortless, but a skilled reader has fortified the subskills of the reading rope in order to manage the skills simultaneously and automatically, resulting in reading comprehension.
I really appreciate these videos because I've seen these graphics before, but I've never really had them explained very succinctly for me. And they've really deepened my understanding of those two models that you hear about and see all over and over again. So those were helpful for me, and I hope they are for you too. The next slide is, I thought that we would take a minute and I would have you share what you think or wonder about the simple view of reading in Scarborough's rope. Did you have any questions? Is there anything that you noticed about it? And my other question was, how is fluency an important part of these models, both equations? And hopefully I put copies of each model off to the side. Oh, wait a minute. I'm all off here. And Peggy and I tested this before. I don't think you'll have to go out to a separate copy, an interactive copy to do this. Hopefully that we can all interact just on this screen. Let's see how it goes. Also, if you run out of room, you can click and move these wherever you need to on the screen. Where did we go? We got lost somewhere here, Peggy.
I'm looking. Just go ahead and move on to your next one and I'll come back to this.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to share more together. Okay. The next section, which I'm also missing the slide for. Hang on a second here. Is entitled Oral Reading Fluency. Okay. And I thought that prior to starting, I would share a definition of oral reading fluency with you by Dr. Rasinski. Reading fluency refers to the ability of readers to read words in text effortlessly and efficiently, with automaticity, with meaningful expression that enhances the meaning of text. In other words, prosody. And I have another brief video of Dr. Rasinski explaining his reasoning behind how fluency is a catalyst and a factor behind comprehension. It is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself.
Question John gave me was, can fluency ever get in the way of comprehension? And I have to say, yes. Well, it depends. It depends upon how you define fluency. Schools around the country define fluency, well-meaning schools, as reading fast, and in which case I think then it would get in the way of comprehension. When kids have got the idea that it's all about reading fast, they're not really paying attention to meaning. On the other hand, I define reading fluency as reading not only automatically, I don't call it fast reading, I call it automatic reading, and reading with expression. And when kids, if you think about it, somebody who's a fluent speaker speaks with expression. When a child is given a chance to practice to read with expression, they really have to monitor the meaning. And so in that way, it's not interfering with comprehension. I think it's actually fostering comprehension. But as I said, it all depends on how you approach fluency. Fluency to me is only worth teaching if it fosters comprehension. And I think working on that in that sort of way will help. And I'll let John tell you the rest of the story there.
I like his philosophy behind oral reading fluency and his definition of oral reading fluency, because it doesn't stress the S word, speed. When people speak of fluency, connotations are made that it's all and only about speed. We've all heard young readers breathlessly spitting out words in an effort to improve their fluency, particularly during timed readings. In this definition, speed and accuracy are looped in with the term automaticity, while prosody refers to expression. There are a combination of factors involved in proficient reading. These factors work in tandem with each other, and we're going to visit about them in more detail today. There are three primary components to reading fluency. Number one is expression or prosody. Number two is accuracy. And number three is pace. The first one that we're going to visit about is expression or prosody. Readers who read with expression and prosody read just like they would talk, or like a good storyteller would read. They are not only proficient decoders, but they can attend to phrasing, emphasizing words to match the author's meaning, as well as paying attention to text treatments, punctuation, and dialogue marks. The second component of fluency is accuracy. You can see that I've included a graph of different levels that teachers use for instruction. Okay, the first level at the top are readers who read at the independent level. That means they read with 96 to 100% accuracy. That's the goal that we'd like to get all readers. When we are teaching children or instructing them, instructional reading passages and reading are those passages that children can read with 91 to 95% accuracy. Any accuracy level that children read at that is 90% or below is considered a frustrational place for them to be reading. There's kind of a three bears aspect to this, where the independent reading level is too easy, the frustrational reading level is too hard, but the instructional reading level is just right. Okay, to determine accuracy, teachers use the words read correctly and divide them by the total words read. That's how you figure out the accuracy rate. Okay, ideally, students in the instructional reading level, once you determine what that is, they're always reaching a little bit. It's a little bit, the passage they're reading is a little bit out of their comfort zone. So they're always kind of striving, but it's not so hard that they get frustrational about it. There's kind of a hard, sweet spot to find sometimes. And sometimes it takes a little trial and error to figure out placements for different students in instructional reading materials. Did anybody have any questions about this? Okay. The third section is the pace, rate, or speed component of oral reading fluency. For some reason, it got shipped clear back to the first. I wonder, go down here.
Sorry, I just restored the version, so it would push you back to the beginning.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you,
Sorry.
Peggy. So I have another graph here for you. That's reading at a pace that mirrors how we talk, not racing through words or reading at a labored rate. This graph gives you some idea where the 50th percentile of readers should be reading at the end of their school year in each grade level. Average weekly improvement indicates how many words per minute students' fluency should be improving each week. The challenge I have with remedial readers is that in order to meet the grade level end of year goal, they must demonstrate an even more accelerated average weekly improvement. It's a classic case where students with the fewest skills need to make the most growth. And unless this gap is addressed and arrested early on, the deficit slide continues to widen and grow. This is why early identification and intervention is critical. WCPM stands for words correctly read per minute and is determined by subtracting the errors from the total words read. Does anyone have any questions about this aspect of oral reading fluency? The fluency? How does all this knowledge help? Well, awareness of these three components, prosody, accuracy, and pace, help us with three primary things that we need to know as teachers. It helps us with screening for reading problems. It helps us with diagnosing deficits and monitoring progress. Screening, the screening aspect of our reading year begins at the beginning of the year with benchmark oral reading fluency curriculum-based measures. These are 1 minute timed fluency measures that we take every year at the beginning of the year. So benchmark assessments are administered 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and at the end of the year. Different assessments are given to different grade levels, depending on where students are on the learning continuum. Depending on the time of year, kindergarten and first grade students are given letter name fluency, letter sound fluency, and/or word fluency assessments. First through fifth grade students are administered fluency measures using connected texts or stories. iStation early literacy and reading benchmarks are also helpful ways to group students according to skill needs. Students who do not meet benchmarks are then diagnosed for skill needs using a variety of diagnostic tests. I've just included the diagnostic tests that we use in my school. You may have some suggestions or some screeners that you could add to this. We use phonological screeners such as Heggerty or the screeners that are included in our curriculum wonders. We use the core phonics surveys, not only the phonics surveys, but we also use high frequency surveys as warranted. Some students are assessed word reading surveys such as the San Diego Quick Assessment of Reading Ability, just to see how they are at reading grade level words out of context, how they can apply those phonics sound symbol correspondences and blend words. And if you have students who are not struggling particularly with fluency, there are other diagnostic tests such as spelling inventories, vocabulary screening tests, and comprehension screening tests that you can give to students. Does anyone have any questions about that? Or any screeners to add? Okay, so once students are identified, this information is used. We have a system that we use in our school where we put all the students' data on a Post-it or a note card. And then we use these, we manipulate these cards with some what if or if then thinking, and we establish homogeneous reading groups, or as reading groups that are as homogeneous as we can make them. And then students receive targeted instruction. Okay, that's not where diagnostics isn't where assessment ends. As instruction is given, we monitor students' progress, given a variety of progress monitoring probes. Those are also 1-minute timed readings where rate and accuracy are recorded, graphed, and monitored. The more intensive the student, the more often they are assessed. Intensive students in our school are assessed every 1 to 2 weeks. Strategic students are assessed every 2 weeks. And if students are meeting the benchmark, we just keep them at the benchmark schedule of 3 times a year. Intensive intervention groups should always be the smallest group and be the most homogeneous. Any questions there about monitoring progress? We keep Excel files where we record these timings and monitor their growth. And if students are shown to be making lackluster growth or no growth or even regression, then we take their case to our intervention team, our MTSS, our RTI team, to discuss how interventions can be changed, interventionists can be changed, and what challenges the student might have that we may not be addressing, whether it's they have visual issues, home issues, other issues besides their academic issues, learning issues. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So how is all this going to work? How are we going to improve oral reading fluency? And research shows that one primary way to do this, and this was mentioned in our first video, is through repeated oral reading. And why do we care about repeated oral reading? In 2000, the National Reading Panel concluded that multiple readings of continuous text, repeated reading, can lead to improvements in reading speed, accuracy, expression, and comprehension. This is true for normally progressing readers as well as students with reading problems. And another thing, research shows us that in addition to reading continuous text, many students improve with repeated readings of words and phrases as well. So when it comes to repeated reading, repeated oral reading, it should be brief, spaced over successive days, and not done more than 4 times per passage. At that point, students hit what I call the point of diminishing returns. Letting students chart their own progress can be a big help incentivizing students by letting them take responsibility for their own reading growth. As you can see, this student, Adam, was able to graph an unpracticed or cold reading, and later he was able to compare that to his hot reading after he had an opportunity to practice a few times. Activities like this not only incentivize students, but they show students they are capable of growth and improvement. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of students that complain about, why do we have to read this again, over and over again? And I found that having students self-graph their fluency and their progress has helped address that with them a lot. Okay. Self-graphing also gives teachers the opportunity to show students how their reading is trending upward, or at least hopefully upward. If a student is showing lackluster progress, as I mentioned before, then something needs to change with their intervention. Repeated reading should be a scaffolded process, and you can see on this chart, on this side over here, we go from more teacher assistance, and as time goes on, responsibility is released to the student to the point where they're reading the passage independently with accuracy, fluency, and expression. Okay, we might start with a cold timing or an echo read. As I mentioned before, a cold timing is where you time students reading in text that's in their instructional level that they have not practiced before. And then they can graph that and compare that with their goal for that time of the year or their grade level goal for that time of the year. Okay, or you can just go right into these timed readings take time out of instruction. So often I just try to do one or both of these once a week. Or you could start with an echo read where the teacher reads a phrase or a sentence and the students echo it back to them. That might be followed up on the second read right here. We're going from less student independence to more student independence, where they do a choral read with the teacher and you read in unison with the teacher. After that, you might have them do some kind of partner read or paired read where they're reading with a more capable peer or a peer that's reading at a comparable level to them. And then maybe on the fourth read, you might have them do a hot timing where students read that practice passage and then compare that with their cold timing or compare that with a prior timing. And then they can celebrate growth and compare that with their past readings. Anybody have any questions about this? Okay, repeated oral reading. Remedial readers require more guidance during reading. So scaffolding is especially important for these readers. They need more practice in decodable text, as well as being pre-taught words or phrases from the text prior to reading, especially words like high frequency words or sight words that they haven't internalized before. Repeated practice on weak foundational skills such as sound spelling correspondences and blending routines are also important. Practice should be done using short passages. And then once they have a certain degree of fluency, teachers can coach students on reading with expression. I spend a lot of my time on foundational skills to the point where I find one challenge I have is finding the time to help model and help them read with expression. Okay, we'll discuss some ways that we can insert more practice with expression as we go on in our presentation. Now, hopefully this will work better than the last one. What are some ways you incorporate repeated reading opportunities in your classroom? As I mentioned before, echo reading is the most scaffolded way I have of helping students, where teacher reads a phrase and the students repeat the phrase. We make class books using the sight word, blends, etc. that we are working on. The kids love reading them. I bet they would. Read naturally. That's a popular one. Eek reading. I don't know what that is. Oh, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, knee to knee. Excellent. 6-minute solutions. Decodable stories, read naturally. Readers theater, that's good for incentivizing students. Almost everybody, all students love to perform, and it kind of motivates them to try harder and do better. Read live, reading A to Z level books. The reading teachers go to. This one, I'm going to move this over a little bit here. We use the same story all week, so they have many opportunities to practice, especially in decodable books, partner reading. We have our student readers that we read together first and then with a partner. Excellent, lots of good ideas there.
Anne, can I interrupt for a minute?
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering, I see a lot of the teachers that are in this session are definitely lower grade teachers, but I'm wondering how this would apply in upper grades, like say 5th grade on up. If any of those teachers are here, would you mind unmuting and sharing?
I would start with doing a lot of previewing and preparing words that they may, especially if it's like a science or a social studies text, content words that they might have a lot of difficulty with, pre-teaching those, any vocabulary content they might have any difficulty with. Our curriculum has leveled readers that are aligned with our anthology, and they teach the same content, but just using easier text. And that's one way that we accommodate those readers in the classroom in our higher grade levels. In middle school, like I said, I would preview and prepare. I would do a lot of background building, whether it's what you say out, what you share with them orally, or maybe priming the pump with a video, if it's about a content area passage. I'm not real familiar with lots of different remedial readers for students in those grade levels. There are things like somebody mentioned 6-minute solutions. I know there's an intermediate version of that. Just a lot of previewing, preparing, building background, and like we mentioned before, scaffolding. Some people use, sometimes one thing I might do is I might have them listen to me read the text or listen to them an audio recording of the text and then go back and read it together. And then the teacher is there at their elbow to offer assistance if she needs to. Does that answer your question? I'm not really very familiar with what materials are out there for intermediate and high school users.
It's not so much a question as I know that elementary teachers really work to build this, but I'm wondering how at the upper grade levels, how teachers work on that. And I don't know, who.
One challenge I have in my school is kindergarten through 3rd grade, everybody's on board with, that's like the first thing we look at. What's their fluency? Where are they with fluency? By the time they get to 4th and 5th grade, teachers attend to fluency, but they've got, I don't know, they're so far into the reading to learn thing that going back to the learning to read part of things is very difficult because they're on to word study, etymology, all those kinds of things. One thing that our teachers have been struggling with is reading stamina. Remedial students are using so much energy trying to read text that perhaps is in their frustrational level that, after a while, they just stop. We had 4th and 5th grade students take their ISATs last week, and I asked my remedial students, well, how did it go? How do you think it did? And one of them said, I just clicked through the answers because I couldn't read all that. So that's one of our goals for next year. We're going to work on reading stamina and how to support those students. Anyway, did you have any other questions about that? I don't know if it addressed your question or not. Any other questions? Some other things that I've used in the classroom, along hand in hand with Readers Theater, we've had poetry readings where, we would have poetry books and students could self-select what they wanted to read and then perform it for the class. I have something called the movie star chair where everybody gets to, sit in the teacher chair and read. We've done, I've put things up on the projected things up on the whiteboard, and kids could use fancy pointers to read it for the class when they think they have it down pat. Those seems to be things that incentivize my younger readers anyway, and some of my older readers too. So now that we visited a little bit about repeated reading, we're going to visit about the 4 levels of reading processing. And as we know, reading is progressively learned skill where we go from learning easier skills to more complex skills. And the 4 levels of reading process demonstrate this in a very clear way. And you can see those 4 levels are the letter level of processing, letter name and letter sound fluency, the word level, reading at the level where we practice phrases and sentences, and reading at the connected text level, okay? As you can see, the acquisition of these skills is progressively more complex in nature. Fluency is needed at each of these levels to ensure that the reading is processing effectively. We're going to take a look at each level in a little bit more detail. Okay, at the letter level, either at the name or sound level is the gateway and most foundational level for learning to read. In this level, readers must distinguish the features of letters, access visual information rapidly and automatically, see letters not as isolated items, but in connection with other letters and words, and process the visual information without the need for conscious attention. Kindergarten and first grade students, they're very accustomed to letter name and letter sound practice. Some ways that I've seen this practice in our school is teachers use letter probes, letter flashcards, sound spelling cards, I have, who has, alphabet arc activities, lots of activities using technology that students can access online. I've seen iStation activities that practice things at the letter level. Anybody have any questions about that? The second level is reading at the word level. So after becoming proficient in letter names and letter sounds, the logical next step is to put graphemes together to make words. The progression starts with short vowels and CVC words in kindergarten and first grade and progresses from there in a systematic way where students are eventually engaged in a word study that includes words where morphemes and etymology are discussed in 4th and 5th grades. High frequency words and sight words are also introduced and practiced at the sight word level, at the word level. So I thought this might be a good time to stop and share ways that we employ oral reading fluency practice at the letter and word levels. Oh, I have letter and word mixed up. It should be letter. Oh, well, you could figure that out. Letter bingo, that's fun. I have, who has, I play that with my kids. Uppercase, lowercase, we do letters one day and sounds the next, that's fun. All bananagrams, pull a letter and identify it. letter spoons, the uppercase, phonics stance. Bang, fry words and phrases, word bounce, CVC word cards. Sing the word in a song. Fly swatter, kids love that. Sight word shoots and ladders, cute. Word ladders. Visual sound. My kids like, when you say word ladders, you mean like when they try to read all the words in one breath without taking a breath. Heidi's songs with sight words. Patronage, letter tiles to build words. Word bingo, lots of cool ideas here. Alphabet arcs. I've gotten on the internet with and watched videos on YouTube of all the different ways teachers incorporate the use of alphabet arcs in their classroom for teaching letter names and letter sounds. Lots of really fun versions of that. Word origins, those base words, root words, suffixes, prefixes, letter tiles, visual phonics. All right, lots of great ideas. Did anybody have any questions about any of these or need anything clarified? There are a couple of things I've never heard of before that I'd like to learn more about. Heidi's songs, is that something online? Sing the word in a song. All right. I'll leave these on here in case you need to come back and I know I'm going to come back and use some of these. How are we doing on time, Peggy?
You're doing well. I'm wondering if maybe you want to take a little break right here and go back into the note catcher and kind of do a quick review.
On this, you mean?
Yes.
Should we do that at the very end, or should I go
Sure,
back? Should I go
wherever you
back
want
to? Did we have very many? Oh, we didn't have anything in there, did we?
No, not really. You have
Repeated
a couple
reading.
minutes if you want to go back to that. You're sure welcome to.
On the Scarborough's rope or simple view of reading, I think that we can probably share on this now. We have our glitch figured out. Any ideas there for how to incorporate, any thoughts or wonderings?
So maybe go back to slide 15 and add your ideas on Scarborough's or simple.
Slide 15.
Okay.
Sometimes I use these as when teachers, at parent-teacher conferences, occasionally I'll have parents come in and they'll say, I'm tired of hearing about reading fluency. I was never fluent in school and I'm doing just fine. But I think that we don't do a very good job of explaining how fluency fits into the bigger picture, how it's, the cog that kind of makes the simple view of reading work, and how it's the glue for Scarborough's rope. You support each other, and how it shows how important each skill is. Yeah, these videos clarified a lot of things for me with these models. They make each other stronger. Okay. I really love these examples. I tell parents very simply, your child needs to read fast enough to remember what the beginning of the sentence was about when they get to the end. Exactly. And I visited a little bit earlier about how we have trouble with 4th and 5th graders who struggle with reading stamina. I think that's because they have to, it's such a labor for them. They can't get through much text before they need to stop. And then once they do that, they can't remember what they read. Great representation of how they support reading. They make each other stronger, support each other. I like the emphasis on how fluency is so important to comprehension. Okay, excellent. All right, so we visited about the models. We visited about repeated reading. So far, we've reviewed the 2 levels of oral reading fluency processing, reading at the letter and at the word levels. The next level we're going to learn about is the phrase and sentence levels, okay? So when we're at this level, we kind of start the chunking process where we chunk words connected in text into phrases. At this point, students are able to use punctuation, subject phrases, predicate phrases, and prepositional phrases to help them make and maintain a reading momentum that helps reflect the author's meaning. Phrases can be delineated and marked in connected text with phrase cued markings. Fry phrases and phrases embedded with targeted phonemes are another way to practice phrasing. If you have not done phrase cued text, it's just a way of you use slash marks to delineate the phrases that you want the students to scoop and where you want them to pause when they're reading. And it kind of helps them not only read in phrases, it helps them read with better expression. Like I mentioned, those subject phrases, predicate phrases, prepositional phrases, and it makes them attend to punctuation more too. If you're not familiar with with phrase cue text, I've included examples and descriptions of how to create phrase cue text in my resources that are available at the end of this presentation. Okay. Any questions about this? Reading at the phrase or sentence level. Fry phrases, I think Dolch has phrases too, lots of different phrase systems out there. And the next level is reading in connected text. Okay. This is the end all be all of reading. This is the ultimate goal for us as readers. When students read in connected text, our goal is for them to be able to anticipate, well, what will logically come next, for them to use previous information, context, vocabulary, and writer's tone to provide momentum while reading, and for them to understand and use the structure or organization of the text to process it effectively, and for them to use personal background knowledge to support momentum. And just like before, maybe we can share some ways that we incorporate phrase and sentence practice in instruction and reading at the connected text levels also. Okay, some of these suggestions. Phrase progression using triangles. I think, have you seen that before where they take a sentence and the sentence might be, I see a dog running, and the first line would say I, then I see a dog, I see a dog running. Nearpod with five phrases. That would be fun. I use 5 phrases just on PowerPoint, and we practice them in a scaffolded way all week. And then at the end of the week, I put each slide on a timer and I see if the kids can read them with accuracy and without having to skip any slides. They have a book of 5 phrases that they can practice on their own and then pass off to me to work toward the next book. Excellent. Word pyramids. Phrase speed drill with passages from the text. That's a clever one to just incorporate more practice with the text, and it kind of gives them a different format to use. In the materials that I'm going to share with you later, there's a phrase queued text generator where you type in some text. It's online. I don't have the address, but it's in those resources. where you type in the text and they install the phrase queuing marks for you. Create shared stories where everyone adds a phrase, a sentence. That sounds fun. That would be very engaging. Fry phrases, phrase speed practice, roll and read with fry phrases. I've included roll and read pages with all 24 fry phrase lists on them for you to use. I have Who Has Games with Words. We use that a lot in my intervention room. There's a system called the Fluency Oriented, when we're over, now I'm over on the text side, Fluency Oriented Reading Instruction, FORI. It's a scaffolded way of attacking text throughout the week. That's included in the materials I'm going to share with you that might be helpful for you who are trying to figure out the best way for you to scaffold instruction in your classroom, repeated reading instruction. Roll and reads, kids seem to really love those. Rereading limited pages with a different purpose each time we read. I know sometimes teachers assign that and then they assign the students to think of 2 questions about their passage that they can ask their classmates. And it kind of forces them to think a little bit of what they're reading, and it forces the listener to attend better because they know they're going to have questions at the end of the text. Reading with varied voices. Yeah, I have a lot of little actors in my room that like to read with silly voices. Chunking text. Poetry coffee houses, another opportunity for students to perform, as well as with readers' theaters. Recorded books. I know some teachers have students on, students record themselves reading so the students can listen back. I think Seesaw has a feature like that, as well as kids like to hear other people read besides just me sometimes. Jigsaw reading, numbering the lines in a text. Our intervention program has numbered lines. Your students try to get further each subsequent time that they read. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to add? Okay. So I know we have a few minutes left. So we have visited a little bit about the research and background behind oral reading fluency. We delved into 2 graphic representations of reading, the simple view of reading and Scarborough's rope. We defined oral reading fluency and discussed the 3 important components of oral reading fluency. We've discussed the importance of repeated oral reading in promoting oral reading fluency in young readers particularly. And we discussed the 4 levels of reading processing. Did anyone have any questions for me or anything that you wanted to know more about? Okay, and then as promised, I have some resource files for you. I have a binder of things that I use in my classroom for promoting oral reading fluency at each of these processing levels. And I've scanned these for you and separated them by level, letter, word, phrase, and sentence, or connected text. If you want to take a few minutes and delve into some of those and maybe jot down some ideas that you want to use, they'll be here and available for you to download and use in your classroom. Some of them are actual activities. Some of them are descriptions and instructions for creating activities. Did anyone have any questions for me? Okay, Peggy, how much time did we have left?
We have about 3 minutes, but I would just like to invite everybody to look at those resources and realize that it's not just a single page. And Cynthia is saying, I looked at these last night, they are awesome. Please note that they are like scanned copies of her notebook which is literally this thick. So please take the time to download any of those things that you might want to use, because it is a tremendous amount of resource that you can take forward.
Anyway, thank you for being so patient with me and patient with my technology issues. I had some issues on this end that I was kind of fiddling around with trying to resolve. If you have any questions or you have any trouble with the downloads, don't hesitate to contact me. My email's on here. And thank you for being such gracious listeners. And thank you, Peggy. I appreciate you and all your help.
I just wish I had this much of her knowledge, because she is a great resource. And I do encourage you, her email is on this presentation. Take advantage of contacting her, because she does have great ideas. She is a true introvert. She will not reach out to you, but if you reach out to her, she will get right back to you. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, Anne.
This is like totally off my comfort zone, out of my comfort zone. Anyway, that cartoon on the last page, that's me reading with my husband. He doesn't, once in a while, he lets me have the closed captions on, but it drives him crazy. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Peggy.
You're so welcome. Just a reminder that this session is scheduled until 2 o'clock. So the fact that Anne did give you an extra couple of minutes, celebrate that. But make sure that you go into your conference schedule and get yourself ready for the last conference or the last session. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peggy, you have eyes of an eagle. I had texted Mike when I got here to the school, and I was like, when you bring the kids, they're out, they've got baseball stuff happening up here today. I'm like, when you bring the kids up here, will you bring me a soda? I forgot to grab one before I left the house.
Dying. I had to wait to get on with Anne because I had to go get a pop. You know, it was like the important things have to happen before I can work with this. But
well, the beautiful thing was, like when I opened it up and I took my first drink, and I'm like, I wonder if Peggy has